Hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Seth Thorson, who is the president of Eurotech Minnesota. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Yeah, would you like to kick us off with a brief background just as to who you are, what you do, and then the business that you're in?
Sure. Seth Thorson. I own Eurotech Auto Repair in Minnesota. We have four locations in the Minneapolis area. We have one location in Wisconsin. My background was going to automotive tech school, and from automotive tech school, working at a couple dealerships and a couple independent garages before I decided I wanted to go into business for myself.
What was maybe that initial spark that led you to really want to take an entrepreneurial leap and have your own business?
Sure. I've always, as a young kid, I always had some small businesses, whether it was trapping gophers in rural Minnesota to fixing up snowmobiles and reselling them. It was always a passion of mine. But I enjoyed working with my hands, and you know, being a mechanic was something that was passionate for me. And once I did that for a while, I decided that, hey, I could probably actually run this and do this, and I wanted to make the leap in merging my skill set of small business with the things I could do with my hands already.
So you had some entrepreneurial experience prior to actually starting this up. What were some of the things that you brought to the table, those experiences, and then what were some of those things you really needed to learn in the first couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, I had some experience, obviously, talking to people and fixing the cars. Those things were second nature skills to me. That was pretty easy, but really learning the accounting and the leadership and how to manage people uh, you know, was a learning process in its own, especially on the financial side when you start getting in the loans with the banks and you have to start learning what they're looking for on loan docs and how to organize your P&Ls and all those things that, it's not just a sheet that your accountant gives you and you go, oh, well, I don't know what it means, but it's checking a box, right? You have to really understand it.
That's cool. Um, so we spoke a little bit before this show, and you talked about how when you tried to open your second location the first time around, uh, that really didn't go as well as planned, and you learned a lot of things from that. Would you mind sharing that story with our audience?
Sure. Yeah. So I opened a second store. We called it Green Garage. It was supposed to be for EVs and hybrids in downtown Minneapolis. A couple things I learned from that. Obviously, we sold it after about 3 years to a good friend of mine. A couple things we learned about is number one, it was trying to diverge from what we do really well, which was the European cars. And stepping outside my specialty, I just wasn't fully prepared to do it. And I also didn't have the passion and drive to really make that brand work like I do with the European cars that we specialize in. So those are two things we learned. The other thing we learned is the location, the demographics, all those things were a whole different animal. We thought we could plug and play what we knew from the suburbs down into the urban center of Minneapolis and what we do with customers, how we do it. And we just went in with the complete wrong strategy. And wrong strategy coupled with not a passion for doing that type of work led to a business that just wasn't going to succeed in that location with me leading it.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us because I know that's one of those things that I don't think people appreciate enough about entrepreneurs is how many times they do actually get knocked down when they're starting up a business and what they learn from it and how they get back up and go at it again. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So talk to us maybe a little bit about what was your work-life balance at the beginning like, and then how has that changed or evolved over time?
Sure. I mean, work-life balance at the beginning, right? I mean, you have no money and you have a lot of time. So, or well, you think you have a lot of time. So we spent a lot of time from laying tile floors to fixing up the shop to, traveling all over to, my wife basically seeing me as I left at 6 o'clock in the morning and kind of not even noticing when I rolled back in the bed. So early on, we put a lot of hours in. Um, Fortunately, with young kids at home, they don't really remember the hours that dad put in back then. But I was probably working 60 to 100 hours a week, depending on the week and depending on what needed to be done at the business. As the business evolves, right, you start hiring more people, you start having managers. As it sits now, there's a middle time where I was working only 60 hours a week. I'm like, hey, I got a lot of time back. And then I started a couple other shops, and I'm like, well, I lost all my time again. And it's kind of the ups and downs and the curves of being an entrepreneur. And you know, every time you do something new, it's going to require a lot of your time, and there's the stair step of trying to get your time back. But as it sits now, we just opened Eau Claire, so that's consuming time. But I have less day-to-day involvement, like boots on the ground. I can work from home a lot. I can do different things. I still have a lot of time commitments, but I have less day-to-day driving from location to location.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys do to stay innovative in your space, right? There's a lot of competition in your space, but what are some of the things that you guys do to remain innovative and kind of out there on the leading edge of this?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorite books is Rocket Fuel. If you
Hmm.
haven't looked at EOS or Traction, right? I'm a very, very high visionary, and I always say there's no shortage of great ideas, but there's always a shortage of implementing those ideas. So I always had 500 ideas, and I'd never actually get them implemented, and I could never figure out why. That was one of the books I read, and I actually had that person in my company, the integrator, and I'm like, ooh, I know who that is. And so he read the book, he tested, did the test, and he was a heavy integrator. And so one of our secrets to being able to stay on the forefront is let me dream up crazy ideas. And Daniel, who's my right hand guy, my COO, he writes down all my crazy ideas, and he calls it Seth's Notebook of Crazy. And if I keep mentioning it, he'll eventually implement one of those crazy ideas, and we'll run with it. But that's always been a big way to do it is I dream them up, and I have somebody that's really good at actually executing them and taking that overall vision and working it into a process and a procedure that can get driven into the business and keep us at the forefront of it. The other way is I'm always at conferences. I'm always networking with other business owners, whether it be at our CEO roundtable, whether it be at our 20 groups for our automotive industry, whether it be at events, whether it be reading books, whether it be listening to podcasts, constant learning, constant seeing what's out there, and how can we adapt and how can we implement new ideas, techniques, training, all those things into our business.
And maybe talk a little bit more about having the right people on your team when you're a business owner. You mentioned that skill set that the implementer brings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how important is it that you know really what you're good at, and then you find the people that supplement where you may not be as good?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's critical in business. Early on, you have to do the things you're not good at very, very, very often, right? I had to find ways to do some of the things that I am not good at, nor do I like doing. And that's the evolution of business, right? As you grow, as you expand, as you scale, you're able to hire people to your weaknesses or hire people to things you don't want to do. And those people can take over those tasks as long as they're supervising and making sure that those tasks are getting done at the right level. But yeah, I mean, it's the right person, right seat is 99% of of growing a successful business and scaling it to where people would want to be. It just a lot of it depends on size. I got business owner friends that I coach and talk to that, they don't want to grow above what they feel they can control the chaos in their own business. John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, if you
Hmm.
will, and their law of the lid is very low, but they're very, very happy with what they do. So then it's just if they're calling me for advice, it's knowing where they want to be and helping them. But they don't want to have 20, 30 employees. They don't. That's not where they want to be. So everybody's got to figure out what journey they want to be on and where they want to be in this entrepreneurship and you know, then you got to figure out what pieces you want to of the puzzle you want to plug into it.
Well, that's really good. So let's kind of stay on that topic a little bit. And could you maybe just offer us a little glimpse into the future plans and goals that you have for your business?
Sure, yeah, we're at 5 locations now. Our current goals is to really stabilize those 5 locations because we've had a lot of really, really fast, aggressive growth. And so we really need to stabilize and build our leadership team in those locations, in our team, and really stabilize the 5 locations we have. But yes, we're always looking to expand and continue to grow the company. I'm a firm believer if you're not growing, you're dying in business. So I'm going to continue to grow. Again, that's everybody's got their own journey and their own wants and their own needs, but that's one of the things that always drives me. And so we're going to continue to grow. but I also have to know when I have to back off the throttle a little bit and make sure that we stabilize the foundation that we have before we start going fast again.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of like a slinky, right? You get the
Hmm.
front end way out there, you got to wait for the rest to catch up a little bit before you can take that next
Correct.
step. That's great. So, Seth, knowing that this show is going to be targeted towards people who are maybe thinking about starting up a business or maybe in their first few years of business, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, my words of advice to anybody, they read a lot of books, right? I was a consummate reader as I got in the business, whether it be magazines, whether it be podcasts like John's here, whether it be other podcasts or um, just other source information. The E-Myth was one of my favorite books, right? I'm a big John Maxwell fan. I'll consume a ton of John Maxwell books. I love his stuff. Um, Rocket Fuel as You Grow is a great one, but uh, Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, that's another one I love to read if you're in a sales position. But the thing to me is reading, reading, reading. You're always going to learn. The learning never stops. And the minute you stop learning is the minute you're probably going to face some big hurdles. So we're always learning, always evolving. And if you want to get into business and start this crazy journey, read, 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 talk to people, network to people, talk to other business owners, get their advice, meet other people. Most of the guys I've ever met are more than happy to help anybody that wants to go on this journey.
That's great. And I appreciate you taking the time to share that. So, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Seth.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great meeting you, learning more about your entrepreneurial journey. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.